The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, the cheesy, weird, and obscure, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review Ginkgopolis from Pearl Games. Then they take a look back at their review of Paladins of the West Kingdom in their Dukes Double Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And you're joining us for episode 248. A tough nut to sack is what we're calling this one, thanks to Chris K. Of course, we're talking about two games. We're talking about Ginkgopolis and the Ginkgo biloba tree. Am I even saying that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Which is a nut. And then we're talking about Paladins of the West Kingdom and sacking medieval lands. Castles. Sure. There you go. There you go. So that's the sacking. Very clever. Very good job. In fact, we get help naming all of our episodes, so you can do it just like Chris K did if you go to our Board Game Geek Guild. And Alex, did you know that we're guild number 2008?
I was familiar with that. I've been asking if we can update ours. You know, we're about 13 years out of date at this point. But, yeah, they won't let us do it.
2008. What a crazy year.
Yeah. Where were you in 2008, Sean?
In 2008, I was in my second year of law school.
So 2008 for me.
Yeah, where were you?
I was in college. That summer, I interned at a CBS affiliate in Nashville. So I spent a summer living in Nashville. And yeah, that was 2008.
All right. Well, anyway, I don't know how we got off on that. Well, I do know, and it's not my fault.
Yeah, it's because of my dumb joke. You know exactly how.
Anyway, so yeah, guild number 2008 over on Board Game Geek. Head on over there. We're going to give you the runners up to the rest of the episode title suggestions at the end of the episode. Well, Alex, happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. You weren't, I would say, although this recording is belated, quote unquote, you did wish me a birthday in due time. So you were not late. You have no late birthday fines to pay. You're all good. Yeah, I know. It was a close call. Yeah, we celebrated in style yesterday, in gamerly fashion. It was pandemic birthday number 2. Last year was Abby and I working from home. It was early on in the lockdown before she went back into the office, and we had food delivered in from a very nice place. What was it? Shoot, can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it was very good. And then we had a bunch of visitors come out to my Animal Crossing island. So it was sort of an Animal Crossing getaway-esque birthday. This year, spent the most of the day working, didn't take the day off, but then went to Olio, which is a lovely Israeli restaurant here in St. Louis. It's called Olio because it's a converted gas station. And what was super cool about that was when we went to pay, the bill was already taken care of. I had told my boss where we were going for dinner. He had called ahead and paid our tab.
Wow.
So
that's a baller move.
It's a really baller move. I was stunned by it, but yeah, I work for a good company. I'm happy with them so far. That was really, really cool.
Had you known in advance, would you have ordered some more expensive dishes and more drinks?
Probably not more drinks. Maybe another plate of food here or there. Yeah. So, no, it was lovely. We ate at an outdoor heated greenhouse. Very tasty. And then got home just in time for Price is Right 1986. This is a game show experience you can book. It's run by Chris Michaud, also known as your moderator, Chris, from the Flip the Table podcast. If you haven't heard me talk about the Flip the Table podcast, it is a podcast devoted to cheesy, weird, and obscure board games. It's where I learned about Heartthrob. It's where I learned about Star Wars VHS game, which I got for you as a surprise, Sean, in the early days of the Dukes of Dice. which is a terrible, terrible game, but a very memorable experience nonetheless. And he runs a version of The Price is Right 1986. We paid for the 2-hour edition of this, and had a whole blend of folks. It was you, it was Suze, it was Aaron from Boards Alive, it was BJ from Board Game Gumbo, Namefather was there, and then it was my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, my brother. Who else was there? Oh yeah,
Anthony.
Yep, Anthony from Florida, and Joe from Stonemaier was also there. If I'm forgetting anyone else, I feel like a real jerk. I don't think so, though. But in any case, it is based off of the Price is Right 1986 board game, but with some other technological bells and whistles. I don't think I can really spoil much by talking through it. It is meant as sort of not an escape room style experience, but there are elements of it that are kind of one and done in a sense, but I don't think I'd be spoiling too much. In any case, you play Price is Right pricing games. You bid on a couple of funky prizes that are set with 1986 prices, and then you bid on fake prizes that are eBay prices in some cases. It was, I thought, hilarious. I had a great time. Got to play a couple pricing games because it was my birthday. Who was the eventual? Did you take home the eventual prize in that last showcase, Sean?
I won the showcase.
Yeah, you did win the showcase.
And can't say much here. Again, like there's not stuff to spoil, but there kind of is. And I will say that my logic was rock solid for that showcase.
Yeah, it surprisingly rock solid. Yeah. No, it was fun because there were folks who were there who had never heard of the Flip the Table podcast, hadn't really seen or heard of Chris's energy. A lot of people did come with the printed Price is Right name tags. I don't know. I had an absolute blast. Sean, what were your thoughts on that whole experience?
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Here's what I found interesting, right? These are all virtual prizes in the sense that there are no prizes, right? It's just like, hey, you're competing for this, and you might win this fake prize, which is nothing. But it was really tense because you're playing these like stupid Price is Right games. And you're trying to get the right number or rearrange things, or I played the game where I had to get tic-tac-toe, and like it was just so like tense, even though absolutely nothing is on the line. And it was just fun to have that tension that just added to it. And it was weird. Like it was dumb fun. It was great. Chris is a fantastic host. I think he does a great job. And we'll put some links in the show notes. If that's something that's interesting to you, it's definitely worthwhile. He should probably double the price, or maybe 1.5 the price. I won't say what it is, but it's a lot of fun. So definitely consider booking that.
Well, and so my brother had texted. He showed up late. He got there towards the very end. He's packing and moving to a new place, but he texted my sister-in-law and said, wow, I normally stuff on Zoom just is not fun and kind of not engaging. And I've had some decent virtual experiences during COVID. Broadly speaking, online gaming has not become a thing I've fallen in love with, but True Dungeon, for instance, has been a nice treat. This was right up there as an experience with that. And yeah, I mean, the crowd got into it. Everyone was participating and engaged and laughing, and just, yeah, it was a blast. 2-hour experience. Check it out. Hopefully he gets a lot of bookings off of this because he definitely deserves it. Ton of fun. So anyway, that was how I celebrated my birthday. How have you been, Sean? Anything new in your world?
No, not really. Same old. But okay. I will have games to talk about in our recent plays. So that's always good. And I'm still just doing the juggle of owning a business and working a ton of hours and investing my remaining time in 3 other gaming hobbies that all require a ton of attention. Can you see what I'm doing right now, Alex?
No,
you can't because the camera. So I'm currently putting super glue on these little bases.
Okay.
So I can add sand because I'm this is for 40K. These are Necron Warrior bases. I'm just constantly painting and modeling now. And I'm grinding on MTG Arena, but that wasn't the big O. Recently I finally beat with the final character on Slay the Spire, the Watcher.
Oh, okay.
I had yet to do that, and it was amazing. I had been playing Slay the Spire for about 2 hours a day for the last month or so, and I had left it after I'd beaten it with the first 3 characters, and I couldn't beat it with the Watcher, the 4th character, and I left for a while. Came back, and just Monday, in fact, it was awesome. It was super awesome.
Are you going to work on the Ascension levels? What's your highest Ascension character?
So I played one Ascension game and I wasn't really paying attention. I'm going to look into that some more. I started to do a couple of the daily challenges. And it's really, have you looked up the scoring? Like how you get scored on certain things?
No,
it's
no
really
idea.
complex. Cause like I just finished a daily climb that I got like 1,100 points and like the top players are getting like 2,000 points. I'm like, holy cow. No, it's going to go down as being one of my favorite video games of all time. Like it's just super solid. I love it. I will probably be coming back to that on and off for a good long while. I mean, like a decade.
I'm bouncing back and forth between that and Rocket League.
Okay.
Those are sort of the 2 in the arsenal at this point. Very, 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 very different experiences. I will say I keep seeing a lot of buzz about Dorfromantik, however that's pronounced. But I don't have a PC that games. I have a MacBook Air, so I am not part of that fun. I have a feeling it'll be on Switch at some point. But yeah, that one seemed to taken off.
I played it.
Oh, have you? Okay. What did you think?
I downloaded it from Steam. I played it. It didn't do a whole lot for me. It just didn't do a whole lot for me. I can see the appeal, I suppose, but I just wasn't super crazy about it. So, okay. I mean, I might give another try, at some point. I think Raquel would really like it. So
awesome. Well, hey, we already kind of started talking about games, which is a little unusual for us, but you actually have some new plays. You have 2 new plays, Sean, which is unusual.
Yeah, it's pretty good for a board game podcast to talk about actual board games.
Usually, yeah.
Crazy, right? Yeah, so first, let me talk about Hallertau from Lookout Spiel, designed by Uwe Rosenberg. Let me spell Hallertau for you if you want to look it up. It's Hallertau. And guess what? It's an Uwe farming, resource management, worker placement game. Shocker!
Does it have polyominoes?
No, it doesn't have polyominoes, but there is a shape thing that's somewhat involved. So first off, it's a worker placement game, and there's this very bland central board. Like it's terrible looking, where the different worker action spots are located. And you are able, they're semi-exclusive spaces. So the first time someone goes to a spot, it costs 1 worker. If you want to go there again, it costs 2 workers, and 3 workers is, I think, usually where it maxes out. And then depending on the number of players, certain quadrants of the board will clear out at the end of every round in order to kind of free up some spaces and make it cheaper. And so you're going to these spaces and you are basically getting different types of resources. There's like 10 different resources. There's animals. No, there's just one animal. There's just the sheep. But then there's meat, animal byproducts, meat and milk. And then there's goods that you'll harvest, that you'll plant and harvest. There's action spaces to go harvest things that you've previously planted, action spaces to go plant things. And you have 2 personal player boards. The first is, you have 3. You have 3 player boards. It's really weird. It's a really weird setup.
Okay.
So you've got one board that are your fields, and you basically have these little square fields. I think you start with 3, and they correspond to different levels. There's a level 2, a level 3, and a level 4, I believe, at the beginning. And if you don't plant them, at the end of the round, the fields will go up 1 level, meaning that when you do eventually plant it, they'll immediately, at the end of that round, they'll harvest at that higher level. But if you do plant and then harvest, the field goes down a level because you've kind of, you've used it more recently. So you've got that board, and it's also where you're keeping track of your resources. So rather than having, like 15 wheat, you've got several wheat on this track kind of like in Fields of Arla. Yeah, that's the name. Okay, so then you've also got the stable board, which is where you keep your sheep. There's also sort of a round tracker on that stable board, and then you've got your village demand board and your like personal house board. And the house is weird. It's just this big chunky house, flat house. All it really has in it is this little window that as you are able to push this house farther to the right, it will tell you that you can get more workers at the start of every round. So the big thing about this game is pushing that house right. And the way that you push the house right is by moving these, I think it's 6 different village demands over to the right. And so you have to every round progressively pay more and more different resources into these village demands to slide them over one step at a time. Although there are these rocks in your way, so sometimes you have to use tools to move these rocks so you can advance the village demands. And basically you're trying to do a little bit of everything because there has to be a flush edge in order for your house to advance. And then as it advances, in addition to just getting more workers, possibly it's going to be some end game scoring points. You're going to score points for everything. I mean, it's very much a point salad game. It's not a very mean Uwe game. It's not a very stressful Uwe game where there's no feeding your workers necessarily. It was good. It's probably going to wind up in the middle of the pack for Uwe games. It certainly wasn't one of my favorites, but I think it's worth some more plays. What I will say is this: I got smoked in my first game. Raquel destroyed me. It was super bad. Part of it was I spent my full first round almost exclusively getting tools because the rule book made it sound like, oh, don't skimp on tools. And it was a mistake. There was no engine building that I was able to do in that first round, which ultimately I think was just not good. Here, I'm looking up here. Oh boy. My final score was 33. Okay. Hers was 81.
Oh no.
It was bad. It was super bad. And I think the frustrating thing, I mean, I could have obviously fixed that for future plays and done better, but once you're ahead, you're getting more workers, which more often than not, I think will tend to keep you ahead. And it's a set number of round games. So it's not like you're just like racing to a victory and make the game faster or anything like that. Not a huge deal. Definitely that first play was a huge mistake on my part, and that's on me, not the game. But I think it's worth checking out. I own it because Rory's a pusher. Rory from Empire Board Game Library. He's like, oh, you gotta own it. And I'm just like, and I need to trust my instincts. Okay. I don't feel like I need to own it. And I think more than likely it will wind up being gone at some point. I want to play a couple more times, and certainly I'd play it in the wild, but sure, it's okay. It was okay. So that is Hallertau, a mid-level Uwe game from Lookout Spiel.
I still haven't played Fields of Arla.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, I hear I need to. So that one's 2-player, right? It's 0, 1, or 2.
So well, I guess all games at some point can be 0.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there is actually one on Kickstarter that I was looking at that is 0. So You've Been Eaten, but
that's right.
Yeah.
So it's a solo or a 2-player game, but if you get the T and something expansion, which I have, it does add a 3rd player, which I haven't played it 3 players. I love it as a 2-player game, and it is it's probably my second favorite Uwe game after Le Havre.
Okay. All right.
Have you played Le Havre?
I have played Le Havre. Yeah, I played that with you in Albuquerque, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
It's good. Like, it's good, but it's not. I don't like it as much as a lot of other folks do. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. Patchwork's hard to top for me in the Uwe category, but that's also a completely different category of his games. So, yeah. Cool. So that's Hallertau, right?
Hallertau.
Well, good deal. Next, the first one I'll talk about, I should say, is one that I played on our good buddy Duke Suzanne's birthday. A game called Forgotten Waters. Forgotten Waters is a pirate-themed game designed by J. Arthur Ellis, Isaac Vega, Mr. Bistro. That's a cool name. It's a Plaid Hat Games game. It is really highly rated on BGG, 2,000 ratings and 8.2. Pretty stellar score. This is a game where you are playing as pirates. It is a cooperative game, although because you're pirates, there are elements where you will be stealing from fellow players, and it doesn't feel like you're being a jerk. It just kind of feels thematic. How this works is each round, you will place your pirate character to do something. It could be going to a bar to carouse with the locals. It could be repairing your ship. It'll be contextual depending on whether you're out at sea, or you're on an island, or you're in the middle of a battle. But you'll assign your pirate to do something. In certain rounds, there's something some people have to do, and then there are certain things that are optional. You're working on improving your own pirates' skills and abilities, accomplishing their own personal goals. There's sort of a Mad Libs aspect of their backstories that gets filled in. I was playing as the Grifter pirate. We were playing through a scenario and paused about midway through. So on weeks where Sean is unable to make D&D, we're likely to come back to it. But yeah, the core mechanic is sort of this worker placement. There's a dice rolling aspect. You're trying to get better at skills so you have better chances of having high results on die rolls. There's a storytelling element to it, a la a Tales of Arabian Nights or a game like that. But there are far more decisions. It's not as random and just kind of the game plays itself as Tales of Arabian Nights can feel. Felt very thematic. Really enjoyed the story. The voice acting on the app from Plaid Hat was really nicely done, nicely presented, and enabled some nice remote play. So had a blast with this one. I anticipate we'll finish out this campaign over the course of another session or two. But yeah, a lot of fun. Forgotten Waters from Plaid Hat. Check that one out.
It's a Crossroads game, is it not?
It is a Crossroads game.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Thought it bared mentioning.
Well, it did, but I didn't mention it, so I'm glad you did.
So like Dead of Winter,
yes.
right?
Like
where it's got the
Dead
Crossroads card mechanic. Okay. All right. Perfect.
Well, so I don't know about in terms of the card itself because we're playing virtually, so I don't have as good of a sense of the in-person components to it. A lot of times, there are some times where there is a choice that you will make. There are other times where the how you roll on the die will determine kind of the result you get, more like above and below in that sense. So I don't know. It's a really cool system. I enjoyed the play of it for sure.
Cool.
So that's Forgotten Waters.
All right. Well, speaking of water, Alex, terrible.
Okay. Good segue.
I played Dominant Species Marine, which is a successor to the original Dominant Species. This is from GMT Games. And in this game, you are playing different types of marine species. So I think there's like arthropods and there's fish and there are snakes and I forget the fourth one. So I own the original Dominant Species and it's a game I've enjoyed quite a bit. It is the original Dominant Species is a worker placement game where you place out workers, but it's the delayed action. So then at the end of the round, you pull I think it's like left to right, top to bottom from the action spaces and resolve them. Here, Dominant Species Marine did away with that, and you're getting your actions immediately upon placement. But it does something interesting where, in order to continue placing, you can only place to the right of workers you've previously placed or below. And then, of course, there's it's laid out in a specific way, so certain actions kind of come after. So it's a little bit more accessible than the main game in that way because there's less planning. I mean, there's still a good amount of planning, but it's less. It's a little bit more tactical, and I think that makes it a little bit, like I said, more accessible. Now, ultimately, what you're trying to do is you're trying to be the dominant species on this this map of the Earth. You start off with some various hexes that you'll be able to take actions that you can, go explore, expand the hexes. And then you're going to have a certain number of cubes in the starting hex, and you'll want to move those cubes. You'll want to take actions to attack other people's cubes. You'll want to, it's basically an area control, area majority game, because there are certain actions where you're going to be able to score different types of hexes. So there's like Coral Reef, which is usually worth the most. There are these vents, which are worth the least, but there's an incentive to be on them because there's some alternate scoring that can happen there. And then there's also this interesting card play that happens where whenever you score a particular type of hex, you're able to choose from these face-up row of cards, which can have some pretty big effects. I really enjoyed the first Dominant Species, which is why, obviously I picked it up. And this one is better. And I don't know that I need to own both. I don't know yet. I don't think I do. And it's tough. I think I want to own this and I'll get rid of the other one. But then at the same time, I don't think it's very good as a 2-player game.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's definitely worth checking out. And I'll also mention the designer is Chad Jensen, who's designed one of my favorite games, Combat Commander. Also designed the first Dominant Species, and he passed away about a year or so ago. And so my understanding is this was the last design, I think, that he worked on that's going to be published. So little sad, a little bittersweet, but it was a fantastic play of it. I'm very excited to get some more plays of this in as things open up even more. We did this weird Dukes of Dice Wednesday night, sort of, at Empire. Rory had screwed up scheduling it, and I had kind of been a little standoffish about doing it. And then he said, we got the date wrong, but it'll just be a couple of us in there. And then he let other people know too. And there were like 12 people. We were all masked. 3/4 of us had our vaccines. It was a little claustrophobic. Like, it definitely felt weird. We figured out we needed to move the tables a little bit differently. I'm probably, I don't know. It was a little weird.
Yeah.
A little weird. It felt weird. So like, that's easily the biggest group of people I've been in over a year. And it was weird. I wasn't crazy about it. But it was a good game. So that is Dominant Species Marine, definitely worth checking out. And if you had any interest in the original Dominant Species, I would say go check this one out instead.
It is going to be interesting, that transition back, because if you thought that was claustrophobic, just imagine being at a convention right now.
Oh God. Yeah.
Convention hall style. Yeah, and I don't know. This is something I'm considering, Sean. I haven't talked to you about this, but for maybe a future, if we ever do a discussion topic show, which has been a while since we've done one of those, something about how the pandemic could change the games that are designed, how you might see that reflected in designs themselves. I don't know. Could be a topic. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm curious how that adjustment will be for you. I'm sure it'll get easier as time goes on and more people are vaccinated and it starts feeling safer, things feel more normal, but I also get that it's not going to be an instant thing.
Well, and here's what I'll say. I think for me, one of the big things, the nice thing is that Raquel, Mariah, and I are all vaccinated, and that's great. That's all well and good. But Chewy is not, because she's 6, almost 7 in a couple weeks here. And I will feel much better when that's available. And we're actually, they're doing some of the, I believe it's the Moderna pediatric trials here at University of New Mexico. And we're considering, it's kind of it's scary to kind of consider having her in that program, but
yeah,
we're considering it. I don't know. It's weird.
Interesting.
Being a parent is hard, Alex.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that.
So anyway,
that's Dominant Species Marine. Cool. All right. Well, Sean, the next one I'm going to talk about is a game that is not out just yet. It is not active on Kickstarter. It was within the past year. I don't know exactly when this was on Kickstarter, but this is a game called Hoop Gods. It's published by Board Game Brothers, designed by Omari Akil and Hamu Dennis. This is a street basketball game. It's a 3-on-3 basketball battle. This was sent over to me, the prototype. So this is not a final edition, though it had components that looked, pretty much final. That plays 2 players. It's a head-to-head basketball game. You start off by drafting your team, and the players have different abilities. They're categorized in short, medium, and tall, and they'll get certain bonuses on different skills or penalties on different skills, depending on those heights. That tends to be a factor, but they also have individual abilities. So, for instance, there's a player called Dunk City who can dunk from further out than other players can. There's a player called Lockdown who makes it harder to get shots off because they defend really, really hard. The core of this game is an energy, or it's called juice in the game, management system, where you are going to be spending juice on your turn to take actions either as the player with the ball or the player without the ball. And those actions can be things like spend a juice to move all of your players on the court, spend a juice to pass the ball to another player, spend a juice to try and steal the ball or get yourself in better defensive position, or spend a juice to block. You have these cards that you'll play to do those actions in some cases, and then you'll have response cards that you can use as well. It's a lot of positioning, as you can imagine, with this, and trying to set things up, trying to avoid breakaways, battling for rebounds. But it's an energy management game, because the more you expend to do stuff on your turn, the less you'll have in future turns to take actions. Although the game does incentivize you to build up to big turns, because if you build up to a really big turn, you get one of these GOAT cards, which are nice, mostly uncounterable abilities that you can use to set yourself up for points. The game is played first to 7 points or until time runs out. When Abby and I played this, we kind of ignored the time mechanic because it just, it felt like you could kind of sit and run out the clock. So we just played to 7. Abby won. She used Dunk City and dunked all over me. It's a really well done sports game. It feels like basketball. It has the players have unique personalities and all feel different. There's some fun strategies you can think of in terms of how do I build this team and what might this combo with how might these folks combo together. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It's that energy management system, the positioning on the court, the look and flavor and feel of the game all felt really thematic, and I love a well done sports game, and this definitely falls in that category. So it is not out yet. It was on Kickstarter. I'm sure it will be available in some form after Kickstarters. Games don't always live and die in that sense, but give this one a look. Abby had a ton of fun with it. I had a ton of fun with it, and you like basketball at all? Give Hoop Godz a try. Well, there you have it. That's new games from both of us. A full complement, a full roster. After the break, our review of Ginkgopolis.
Well, we've talked a lot the last couple episodes about the Freedom 5 Kickstarter that was up from our friends over at arcanewonders.com. And shucks, wouldn't you know it, the campaign is over. A very successful campaign. They had almost $1 million in pledges, $944,247. Oh my goodness, that's so much money. Now, don't fret though, because if you didn't back in time, you can still do a late pledge. You can get the Citizen Pledge for $49. You can do the Hero Pledge, which is for the Kickstarter exclusive edition, for $109. So head on over to freedom5game.com. That's freedom5, F-I-V-E, game.com. That'll send you over to their late pledge site where you can take a look at all the different options for getting in a late pledge. Not sure how long this is going to be up and running for, so I would say hurry, act now. Definitely check it out. That's freedom5game.com. Additionally, check out all of Arcane Wonders' other awesome titles at arcanewonders.com. All right, go check it out.
Sean,
why do all of our ads have to stop, or start rather? Why do all of our ads have to start with one of us saying the other person's name? Alex! Do people not know what they're listening to? And do they not recognize how distinct your voice is from my voice?
Well, Alex, I think that we're completely distinct as human beings and individuals.
I agree. For example, Sean, which is you, not me, you have a very lovely game topper, do you not?
I do, in fact, Alex, have a wonderful game topper. I enjoy it so very much. It's something where I don't have to have a full-on, all-purpose, all-the-time game table. I can have a game table when I want a game table and have a normal table when I don't want a game table.
So, Sean, I hear that, well, shoot, the Kickstarter's over, right? The Kickstarter's been over for 6 months? How on earth can I get my own game topper, Sean?
Well, Alex, it turns out it's not too late. You can go to Game Topper's website at gametoppersllc.com, and there are still some toppers you can get. Some of the packages have already sold out, but there's still some things out there. You get a Baker Street bundle. You can get some of their amazing thematic game mats. Sean, I got a little secret for you.
Is the secret...
Wait, no, Alex, I have a secret for
Sean,
you.
Based on this fact that our buddy Berkey is a very industrious fellow?
It is, in fact, Alex, that our friend Perky is a very industrious fellow. And keep your ears peeled, Alex. There's another Kickstarter coming later in 2021.
Should I keep them peeled or should I keep my ears to the ground?
You should keep them somewhere where they're going to be able to hear this news.
Okay, fair enough. Well, if you want to learn more about Game Toppers and the awesome products that they have, you should head on over to GameToppersLLC.com.
It's always a showstopper when you're playing on a Game Topper. This week, Sean and I are taking a trip in a couple of ways. We're taking a trip back in time to an ancient game by board game standards and to an ancient but also futuristic somehow city of Ginkgopolis. We're talking about Ginkgopolis, a grail game for so many, but is this grail worth having in your grasp? We'll tell you.
All right, so Ginkgopolis, designed by Xavier Georges, with art by Gail Lenurian, which almost sounds elvish. Almost high elvish. Yeah. Then this was published by Pearl Games. So Ginkgopolis, it takes place in the year 2212, which this was published in 2012. So they were probably just like, all right, 200 years out in the future. Cool. And it centers around, and I say centers around loosely with air quotes, Ginkgo biloba, the oldest and strongest tree in the world. So apparently it's become this new way to build and to expand humanity in a more environmentally friendly way, more in touch with nature, I suppose. And so basically you are an urban planner, and we're trying to build out the main city, trying to build it outwards, build it upwards, and then use the various abilities of the different types of city tiles in order to advance your engine and to get more success, which is another way of saying victory points. All right, so we've got two things in this game that make up kind of the bulk of the board, so to speak. That includes building tiles and building cards, and they correspond with one another. So there are basically three different types of buildings: blue, yellow, and red. And there is a tile for 1 through 20, numbered that way for each of those colors. And then there is a corresponding card. Now, did you know this, Alex, that the red buildings, they are production buildings of some kind, which give you resources. The yellow buildings are, they are buildings for daily life, housing, commerce, leisure, etc. And they give you success points. I don't know why you're laughing. You're being very rude right now, Alex.
Yes, no, incredibly rude. I didn't think you would emphasize the thematic elements of this game during this explanation section.
There are the blue office buildings.
Oh, yes.
Excuse me. They're the blue buildings, which are office buildings, academics, analysis, research, etc. Okay. So you start the board with a randomly built 3x3 grid that are the 1, 2, and 3 red, 1, 2, and 3 yellow, 1, 2, and 3 blue that are arranged again in this 3x3 pattern. You're also going to draw 4 cards from the deck, each of the players. And again, these cards are going to correspond to red 1, red 2, red 3, etc. But then there's also these urbanization cards, which are labeled A through L. And these go around in alphabetical order, starting at the top left and circling around the 3x3 grid. Okay, so here's what a turn's going to look like. You're going to simultaneously pick one of the four cards you have in your hand, and you're going to play it. Now, you could either play that card by itself, or you can play it with a tile that you have collected previously. If you play a card by itself, it depends on whether it's an urbanization card or a building card. If it's an urbanization card, you're going to get to do one of two things. You either get one of your color's resources, which are these little cylinder shapes that represent, I guess, your people resources. I don't know. They're called resources, but who knows? Or you can draw a tile from the face down stack. And I should point out, you'll also start the game with some amount of resources, some amount of tiles, and some amount of success points already. Okay, so now if instead of an urbanization card, I am playing a building card by itself, it means I'm going to activate that building. And so I'm going to get the resource, the success points, or draw a building tile for whatever color building I've activated. But I'm actually going to get more than just one if there are multiple levels of that building. And I'll kind of explain that here in a second. All right. Now, the second thing you can do is you could play an urbanization card with a tile. So let's say I play the A card. What that's going to let me do is it's going to let me place the tile of my choice where the A was, basically above and adjacent to one of the original tiles in the 3x3 grid. I'm expanding the city. And for doing that, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get all of the resources, success, or tiles from all of the adjacent, orthogonally adjacent tiles that are already there. It also kind of allows me to rearrange where the next A spot's going to be. There's usually a couple options for that. All right. The third thing you can do, this time, instead of an urbanization card, you're playing a building card, and you're playing it with a tile. You're basically saying, I'm going to activate this particular building that's already out to build a layer on it. So you're taking one of the new tiles you have and you're overlaying an existing tile on the board. Now, when you do this, if there are opponents' resources on that tile, you have to return it to them, and they're going to score some success points. And then you're going to put 2 resources, if it's the second level, to indicate that's a level 2 building. And there's going to be this area majority that I'll describe here in a second. By the way, I forgot to mention, during urbanization, when you do expand, you do place one of your resources on that expansion tile. So sorry about that. Okay. So going back to the building up, the other cool thing is that the tile that you covered, well, that card is now worthless in the deck. It would serve no purpose. So instead of just discarding it, you're going to place it in front of you in your tableau, because you're going to start the game also with characters that are going to give you certain bonuses when you take certain actions. So a character might say, whenever you urbanize, why don't you draw an extra resource or draw an extra tile? Same thing, whenever I build up, I'm going to get to add this card to my tableau to get an extra bonus effect. And then eventually, with some of the later buildings, there's going to be some end game scoring that can assist you there. Now, there are some rules for building up. So, for example, it's generally easier to have a higher level building. Remember, they're numbered 1 through 20, or higher numbered building above what you're placing over, because if you're placing a number that's lower, you're going to have to pay success points to make up the difference. Also, it's generally easier to match a color. So place a blue building on top of a blue building. If you don't, you're going to have to pay an extra resource if you want to change the color. So those are the 3 basic actions. And then there's some things where the draw deck gets added to as you add these new buildings to the mix. You shuffle it up and redraw. But why are you doing any of this? Well, you're doing a lot of this because at the end of the game, in addition to those success points you've gained during the game, a good chunk of your points is going to come from area majority. So you're going to, at the end of the game, be scoring the districts, which are basically contiguous sections of the same color. They need to be at least 2 spots or more. So a single district or a single tile by itself cannot be a district. And so what you're going to do is you're going to see who has area majority in each of these districts. Whoever has the most resources there is going to score a point for all of their resources and a point for all of the resources of every other player's color. A lot of points up for grabs there. The second place person is going to score points equal to just their resources there, and then that's it. If there's a tie, the first tiebreaker is who has the highest level within the district, and if there's still a tie, it's whoever has the highest numbered building in the district. But that's basically it. You're gonna score the success points you got during the game. You're gonna score all the districts, and then you're gonna score your end game points. And whoever has the most points is the winner of Ginkgopolis. All right, Alex, what were your initial thoughts here? Or excuse me, what were your initial expectations? Had you heard of this game when it first came out in 2012?
Not when it first came out in 2012. I might have vaguely heard about it before, but how I think I had most heard of this, and boy, I hope I get this right. I believe Steph Hodge from Board Game Geek and a whole bunch of other things has had this as her number one game of all time for quite some time, and it had been unavailable for a good number of years. This we had saw a lot of names reference Grail games, and I referenced it in the intro. There's a reason for that. This game for a lot of people had been talked about really, really fondly, but it kind of got lost in the shuffle, as Eugene mentioned on the Guild, of what was a very, very good 2012 year for Euros, and it just didn't quite stand out enough. In some ways, this game was a little bit ahead of its time, if I'm honest, just based on the blend of mechanics and how it operates. So I had heard of it that way, but I had absolutely no clue what the game was like, what made it special, what set it apart. Any of that kind of stuff was not something I was aware of. So I didn't have a lot of that kind of knowledge going in, but I had heard of the game. And I think my expectations were, for the most part, intrigued, but I just don't know. I just don't know what this is going in. Sean, had you heard of this one before or heard many thoughts on it?
No, I actually played it, Alex. I played this. It was actually Eugene's copy, and I played it. I remember at Empire, in the early days of Empire, so that would have been around 2016, 2017. So still four or 5 years after the game had come out. I had heard about it in passing before then, but it didn't look super interesting to me, I remember. But that first play of it, I believe, was 4 players, and I really enjoyed it. And I was definitely bummed to hear that it was out of print and a Grail game. I didn't love it enough to say, oh, I need to own this and I want to, I'm going to go pay a bunch of money for a copy, like I would with a game like, say, Glory to Realm. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. And certainly I would have probably thought at the time, hey, if this ever became available, through normal channels, I'd definitely be interested. And guess what, Alex? I do own this game now. So hooray.
Good job. Congratulations. Yeah. So let's dive right in. Rules. You had played this one before. Did you have a pretty good recollection of how it played, or did you need a pretty solid refresher?
Yeah, I needed a pretty solid refresher. I mean, so much so that in my first play of this with Raquel, we were playing for about 5-6 minutes, probably the first 4 turns, and I realized we did something completely wrong. Like, just completely wrong. At one point I even said to her, don't worry about the value on the card. It doesn't activate a specific building, like something just completely wrong. Because I think I kind of skimmed through the rules thinking I remembered it better than I did. And I did not. But I think had I been a little less arrogant, dare I say, I probably would have spent a little bit more time on the rules. But I think it's a very solid rule book. I mean, there's not a lot of rules here to the game. It's broken down in a pretty good way. They give good examples. I like how they, tell you, here are your 3 options, A, B, and C. Here are the specific steps you do with each option. One of the things I think is really nice, which is a good example, is in the C action, when you're constructing a level up, there's a point when you're adding that card that you use to your tableau. And, a question is, well, when does that happen? Because am I going to get the benefit of this card as part of the process of building it? Your natural inclination is to say no, but hey, the rules it's right there. It's crystal clear. Step 5, get your bonuses. Step 6, add the card. So it breaks that down for you. I think it's a really solid rule book.
Here's what I'll say. I think the rule book does a fine job. I have no issues with the rule book itself. I love a lot of other elements of this. I love that it's reinforced well on the player screens. It shows you the flow of each of the different possible types of actions you can take. I love that it makes a first play experience. It can be fairly smooth because it just gives you a set of cards. You may not know how to draft or what you would even draft for, so it gives you the set of cards. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think about it. For some reason, Sean, the mechanics, what you would do in the game, clicked enough to play. But the big picture of how am I getting points? How does this all come together? What does this board look like? What should I be doing? Absolutely did not come together until the very end of the first play of this. This was very much I think this is all how it works. Okay, you add these little markers to show you're adding cards into the deck. Okay, you're adding tiles out to the board. Okay, you're building on top of others. I get that there's this engine you're building. I get that there's this endgame scoring, but it just felt like such an absolute mystery until the very kind of tail end of that game. Now, could be a good thing. Could be, I mean, not. It's not necessarily a good thing. It could turn some players off of a first play experience. Because I will find, Sean, in a lot of cases, as I'm learning the rules to a game, I understand the point of the game. I get, okay, this is my objective. These are some ways I might be able to get there. And even reading through the rules, it just didn't click in that way for me. So it did click, and there's nothing wrong with the rule book itself, but I think just by the nature of the game, the learning process of this one, at least for me and for my brain, was a little bit slower than most games.
So the how of it clicked, not necessarily the why.
The mechanics itself are, as long as you follow the steps for them, right? The steps themselves can be, and we'll talk about the kind of the fiddliness of this during gameplay. The steps themselves can be fiddly, but they're clear, right? You do this first, then you do this, then you do that, then you do this. You add this card to your tableau. Okay, you go through the steps, and it's just pick a card, play a card. It's not a complex game in that sense. But the interactions and how it pieces together and what you're going for and when you might want to cover and when it's okay to spend points. Because, right, if you're mismatching color and you're playing a lower power version, are you getting a scoring card that's going to benefit you enough? We'll break a lot of this down more in gameplay, but the mechanics of it are fairly straightforward, but what they all kind of combine into, not so much.
And so kind of on that point, I think you're probably right. So I didn't quite, I can't really recall what happened that first game, but it did make me sit up and take notice when I taught Raquel. So by the way, quarantine caveat, I've only played this 2 players recently. I played it 4 players before, but that's been a while. But I did want to say to her, look, here's the point of it, obviously, but really there's some interesting decisions to be had with when are you changing a color? Like, are you cutting a district in half? Are you bisecting a district by changing the color? And is there going to be some big upset for the rules? So I definitely feel like having a very brief strategy talk to explain the why is something that you'll want to do when you're teaching this to new players.
Yes. Yeah, there are elements of the why of the game. The how might be clear, but the why isn't necessarily. Yeah. Though I will say this, Sean, interestingly enough, and maybe this is a reflection on, I don't know what this is a reflection on, but in the first play that we had of this, Abby crushed me. She some score, I think, in the high 80s or 90s, somewhere in that ballpark, and I was somewhere down in the 70s. Mm-hmm. I won the second game. Both of our scores were worse, knowing what we were doing, than they were in that first game when there was some amount of cluelessness to the whole thing.
I think that's good. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, ultimately it's a zero-sum game, right?
Right.
And so I think it just means that you were both a little more cutthroat, and it is a very cutthroat game. So just be aware of that.
But also we found ourselves obsessing over decisions a little more when you knew what the ramifications of those decisions are, and building our engines more intentionally, but not in a way that was quite as productive when all was said and done. So, found that whole thing quite interesting, and we've jumped the gun and really kind of bleeded into gameplay earlier. Jumping back, a little bit. Let's talk art and components. Sean, art and components on this one.
Okay, so I like the little cutesy futuristic buildings. There's some interesting, maybe Easter eggs is the wrong word, but there's something to kind of look at after you've made your decision and you're waiting on the other player, if that's the case with you. It's all serviceable and it's all functional. Nothing that really blew me out of the water in terms of the art. And then as far as the components go, the quality on the tiles is good. The card quality is solid. I like that it's cylinders, or excuse me, it's not cylinders. It's like hexagonal or octagonal cylinders, which are always better than round cylinders, because round cylinders will roll off the table. So that's fine. The only thing that was a little irritating to me was the success tokens, the VP tokens. There's a 1, 3, 5, and 10. They're all the same size, and I think they're all the same color.
Yeah, I think there might be some slight differences in shades, but it's not a lot.
Yeah, that was a little annoying, especially when everything, your resources, your number of tiles that you have, and then your success points, they're all hidden behind a screen. So, like, I understand why some games, they have different values that are the same size because they're blank on the back, so it's hidden information. It's already hidden. I don't know. That was a little annoying, and we found ourselves having to double check that we were taking the right success token, the right value. What do you think?
Yeah, I was not blown away by any of the components, but I will say this: everything about it was incredibly functional. You had the yellow tiles correspond with these yellow markers. The resource ones, you knew what that meant. It was all laid out, as I mentioned, on the back of the player sheet, so you had a sense of, okay, this is how that action flows. And the timing of that action can matter in a lot of cases, right? You might need to cover up some of your own resources to have enough resources to build on top if you're building over your own thing. So, the how that is laid out and how that part plays out is very functional. We'll talk about this more in theme. The soul of this doesn't come through. I think the box cover is delightful. I think the cranes look really, really nice. Really, really functional, not necessarily compelling, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. So, art and components, pretty quick discussion there. Let's talk gameplay. And we'll get to guild thoughts in a bit, but there is something about this game that seems to really click for people, a lot of people, that there's something in the blend here that folks seem to really enjoy. Sean, and I will say, I had a COVID caveat on this one too. Only 2-player plays, only with Abby. What were your thoughts on how this one played? What was it about it that attracted you so much to it?
So, I mean, obviously it's really thinky, right? There is a certain level of randomness in the sense of, what cards am I going to draw? Am I going to draw the right card I need to activate a particular tile? Am I going to draw the tile that I need? Maybe you don't need a specific tile, but you're like, I need a high blue right now. Because I don't want to spend the success points to go up on Raquel's level, and cut her off there or whatever. So it's interesting because you've got to work with what you've got. And sometimes you're going to be really lucky. Now, what's nice, I should say, is you get these 2 discard your hand tokens, which are worth 2 points if you've kept them each, 2 points each. Or you can discard 1 to discard your hand of 4 and then draw 4 new cards. And I liked that. I appreciated that because sometimes you'll get just a really bad hand. And it's interesting too, because you get your hand of 4, you pick a card, and then you send the cards off clockwise, and then everyone's drawing a 4th card. So you're kind of deciding, okay, am I taking this card because I need it? Or am I taking this card because I know my opponent needs it and I want to keep it away from them? There are very intense decisions at every point in this game. And I think that's the appeal for a lot of people. Am I taking a turn to get resources? Am I taking a turn to, really topple someone's area majority control? Interesting choice of I really need resources. And the best way I can get resources if I expand here into this corner, which will let me activate this level 3 resource building and this level 2. Oh man, that's gonna give me a ton of resources, but I'm just going to be feeding points to my opponent who already has majority there. But I think it's going to pay off. Those are all the decisions that are constantly going through my head in this game. And it's really solid. I really enjoyed it. It's a very tense, little mean game. And I tend to like games to be that way.
And I didn't see the meanness emerge quite as much with Abby and I. I think we saw some amount of counterplay. I could see absolutely how it would get mean. There's a scoring element to this with majorities where if you're the only person in one area, you score both first and second place points, which can be, for if it's a huge area, devastating, absolutely devastating. Abby pulled a nice play to flip an area from my control to hers pretty late in the game. I've had plays where late in the game, I would just add even one resource into an area, which although it increases, it technically sort of increases the score, but it doesn't really because you're suddenly part of the scoring of that area. I did have a thought of, hey, I'll burn this card so that she doesn't have it at to access to build up in this area and come in. It's not as useful to me, but I don't want it going over to her. You have those hand refresh cards that you can use to kind of dump cards out. The second game we played of this, I had a really strong expansion strategy. So we had a very different looking board because I was incentivized, had a good point engine going, where if I expanded, I would just get points like crazy. You have some tense decisions in this one too, Sean, of do I play a mismatch because the scoring card I get is going to be so much better for me? So, it's there's a lot going on here, and that combo of tableau building, of area control, of drafting and hand management, all plays together really well, and I can envision it not being certainly too much slower at 3 or 4 because you do a lot of this, not all of it, but enough of it simultaneously. But I also think you could have some really intriguing situations at that player count too. So I would be excited to try this one with 3 or 4. I think it will play differently in a positive way.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing is that for the most part, once you've committed your card selection, you don't have a choice after that, right? The only time you're really making a choice is if you have to decide where the expansion token, the little letter, if it's going to go, left or up or right or whatever it is. But ultimately, you don't have a lot of choices. So there can be some waiting around for opponents to make that selection. But again, that's all done simultaneously. And then once everyone's locked in, then you're kind of taking turns going in order. But again, there's no decision to be made at that point. So it can be pretty quick turns. And I do think I liked it at 2. I liked it well enough at 2. But what was that one? What was that one game we reviewed? And at 2 players were like, it was Glenmore 2. It was Glenmore 2 we had just talked about in the double take. And higher player count games would tend to take longer, but the majority scoring was more interesting, right? And I think it's not the same here. I think you're right. I don't think adding players takes that much more time. I don't remember my 4-player play being incredibly longer than my 2-player play. I certainly would have stuck out in my mind, right? That would have been a big factor against it. But I do think that the scoring can be more interesting with higher player counts because in a 2-player game, you're going to get something, right? I mean, as long as you're there. In a 3-player game, though, or a 4-player game, man, you were in first place, and then all of a sudden, in a particular district, and then all of a sudden, you got edged out, and now you're in second, and then, oh no, something terrible happened at the end of the game, and now I'm in third, and all of that time and investment into these areas. I don't know. I think the scoring can be a lot more interesting at higher player counts. I didn't hated it too. I mean, let me rephrase that. I liked it still quite a bit at 2, but I think I would prefer to play this at higher player counts. And I think there are other 2-player games I'd probably rather pull out.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. Now, Sean, this did get mentioned in Guild Thoughts, and there were quite a few Guild Thoughts on this, but just to talk about it, I did have some experience of fiddliness here. Because there are a lot of individual steps that you take for, fairly simple actions, but with some amount of complexity in how you execute them. The one specific thing that I kept forgetting, and it happened pretty consistently, was to add the little construction crane to indicate, hey, this, you need to add this card into the deck whenever you get a chance. That kept getting forgotten from time to time. Did you have any experience with things getting left out or not remembering the exact flow?
Yeah, I think we definitely left things out from time to time. It wasn't a huge issue, and it probably happened. I would say that first game probably happened 3 or 4 times. Subsequent games, maybe once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
I could see that, though.
Yeah. Well, and it is worth calling out that at certain phases of the game, when the draw deck is exhausted, there's a little bit of a reset mode where you have to go find the cards and reshuffle. In a 2-player game, you're dealing additional cards off the stack. So there are moments where it goes on pause, but I find that buildup of the game that you're constantly almost deck building, a community deck building kind of thing as you go. I found that really interesting, and I found, hey, I'm looking for this specific scoring card, or I'm short on resources, and I need to find something to boost. Is there a way I can at least be resource neutral as I go here? I found a lot of that really interesting, and that deck building that comes from, hey, this comes out, there's a crane on it, okay, now it's in the deck. The timing of when those come out can be particularly interesting, and you don't have a lot of control over that timing. So I really enjoyed that element, even though it's a little bit fiddlier. To me, it's part of kind of the holistic uniqueness of the game.
It didn't really affect me. I saw that on the Guild, and I don't know. It was kind of had fun with it, if that makes any sense. I'm like, okay, we're going to add cards in, and then, I need the red 7, the red 13, the red 15, and
yeah,
it wasn't that big a deal. I think if one player was doing all of it, maybe that would be a little annoying, but didn't affect me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It was oddly fun in a way that administration is not usually, but no, I had a similar experience where I would call out the numbers, Abby would pull out the cards, she'd do the shuffling, and we get set up and ready to go. So, no, I absolutely had that same kind of experience too. So, interesting. Yeah. Well, I think next up, theme.
Oh, boy.
Now, before we dig into this, I did post this on the Guild. There was a comment, and I thought this was a good one. This came. I won't say his name, but it rhymes with Bo, and he works for a game company. He had provided some feedback that the theme section of reviews has been particularly weak, which I agree with. I've made the comment on air, and he said he thinks the core of it, to summarize his comments, are that we're asking the wrong question in a lot of cases. That does this game make you feel like a city builder tends to be where the discussion goes, or at least where I tend to steer it. Mm-hmm. And the better question is, what does the theme add to the game? And I think this is a perfect case study for that question, right? What does this theme add to this game? Because I think if there's one major criticism I have of Ginkgopolis, I think the mechanics are engaging. How you build up a city and the look of the city can be interesting enough, but it does feel to me, in large part, and this is in the presentation too, soulless. It doesn't have a lot of character or life to it, if that makes sense. I didn't find myself getting engaged, and I don't think the theme here brings a lot to the table. This sort of building up an ancient city. I don't know if it's a detractor in a huge way, but I think it does, to some extent, take away from my enjoyment of the game. In other words, it doesn't reach the same levels other games like this can, because it doesn't have as much of a feel. Even a game like Pulsar 2849, which I would not say is a supremely thematic experience, at least feels like you're engaged more, and that the theme itself adds more to the table, brings more to the table, that sort of space station building experience. than a game like this, where it doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't feel like anything at all. What was your experience with the theme of this game, Sean? Did the city building add anything to the mix?
No. And let me take a step back. Let me kind of address the meta point. I don't think it's that we're asking the wrong question. I don't think it's that this new question needs to replace the old question. I think both questions can live in harmony with one another. Because ultimately the first question, it needs to be asked and answered for those people that know their tastes and know, I really, I prefer a much more narrative experience, or I prefer a more abstract experience, or what, or maybe, I have enough abstract games. I don't need an abstract, because I kind of see, we talk about Ameritrash, we talk about Euros, and then abstract, right? And they're all kind of there on a spectrum. This game, in my mind, is 100% an abstract game. 100%. And if anything, so to answer the first question, do I feel like I'm a city planner in 200 years in the future building ginkgo biloba tree buildings? No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't. When I'm playing Descent or Gloomhaven, do I feel like I'm in a dungeon fighting monsters? Yeah, absolutely, right? And so I still think that's an important question to ask and answer. If it's a question of, what is the setting? Okay, well, here's the setting. I mean, it's this futuristic city planning building game. And does it add anything to it? In this case, I don't think it does. I mean, I mentioned in the rules, like the blue buildings are office buildings.
Yeah.
Academic, analysis, research. And so, no, I don't think so. And so now I'm forced to ask, strip away any of that. Would it matter? I think I'd like this just as much as an abstract game. Take away that theme, and I think I would like this game just as much.
I think, if anything, the theme of this game takes away, because I think they could have had some really nice, even cleaner looking things for the presentation. The score markers wouldn't necessarily be these ginkgo leaves. I think, if anything, it potentially takes away, which is not typical of a theme. But I actually agree with you that I think if this were pure abstract, I actually think it would work better in how the game is presented and how the game feels. I don't know. They needed to go more soulless. They needed to lean into it.
Well, I mean, you play an abstract game like, like Onitama. You play what's the like Devon and Gimp?
Oh, that whole series, yeah.
Like, that's fine. Like, there's like, I don't need on my Gimp and Devon, little pictures of futuristic buildings or whatever. Like, it's an abstract game. Abstract games are great. I don't want to play them all the time. I'm a pretty omni gamer, where sometimes I like really dry, soulless Euros. Sometimes I like really dry, soulless abstract. Sometimes I want to, be in a dungeon crawl. Sometimes I want to play a war game. Sometimes I want to apparently play Magic and 40K, whatever. They all have their place. And I think this would be fine. I don't find the theme particularly charming. I find it weird, right? Like,
yeah,
it's weird, and it's a weird name. It's a weird name, and it also doesn't sound right to me. It sounds a little off. Do you like, it sounds off.
How it's spelled. Like, when I tried to look it up on BGG, I had it doesn't spell the way that you think it does. I would have put the G before the K, for instance, in my head. But it's GINKGOP. Yeah, even that is a little bit funky and a little bit weird.
So, like, when you say ginkgo biloba, like 2 words, right? Ginkgo, it's easy to say the KGO, right? Ginkgo, like, you can kind of say that. They kind of blend together. But then when you're putting it together with the polis, Ginkgopolis, I feel like I can't say both the K and the G together.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what's really important, folks. Can you pronounce all of the letters in the name, or do they just run together? I mean, that's a full point down in my estimation.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see what kind of scoring we get for this. Before that, though, we got a mountain of guild thoughts, and I mean an absolute mountain. Mostly positive, but I'll start off with the most negative one, which came from Chris K. Ginkgopolis is an interesting gestalt of mechanisms: card drafting, tableau building, tile laying, area majority. But I found I enjoyed it less and less with repeat plays, at least the original version. If I'm honest with myself, part of that is because I am bad at tableau builders and I lose a lot. But another significant part of this is because it's so annoyingly fiddly. Pass cards, shuffle the deck, deal cards, move these letter tokens, place construction cylinders, take these cylinders back, add new cards to the deck, etc. And that is every single turn. As a result, the game flow spurts and sputters, and it just becomes more frustration than fun. In the end, I sold my copy. Maybe the new edition addresses some of these issues, but I don't have much interest in returning to Gink, unfortunately. We didn't talk about this, Sean. I don't actually know. Are there differences between the first and second edition? I don't know if there are.
No, I don't believe so. I think it's pretty much the exact same game, same art, same everything.
Yeah, Chris K, I think you'll be disappointed. I don't think it fixes what you're talking about. I absolutely can see what he's talking about. It has a layer of fiddliness for whatever reason, and you talked about this earlier. It does not come across as frustration. Maybe on more and more and more plays it might add up that way, but to me it didn't feel that way. So, yeah, fair enough.
Okay. And then Paul Naxer says, I'll get straight to the point on this one. Ginkgopolis is a top 10 game for me. It has a few flaws to be sure. Chris K's dislike of the shuffling, dealing, token moving, and adding cards adds a little downtime. I find that downtime useful, though, because you can spend it looking for opportunities. The real trick is getting the cards you need at the right time. The luck of the draw can be a hindrance in this game, to be sure. Mitigating that luck with the hand refresh tokens is helpful, but knowing when to pivot based on your card draws is where the real fun and excitement of this game comes to shine. And Paul gives it a 6 out of 6. Woo boy.
Not the only 6 out of 6 that happens. Megan Naxer.
No relation.
Yeah, no, actually there is. No. Says, I still fondly remember the first time I played it and focusing so hard on the center board that I gave the win to the person on my left due to not paying enough attention to the drafting. Second game I played had the opposite effect. I got the hate drafting down, but couldn't quite keep up with the area control shenanigans. On the third play, everything clicked for me and this game became a ducal 6. Our old game group would get this out regularly, especially since we all knew it and could do a 4 to 5 player game pretty quickly. But after moving away, we missed this game so much, so we overpaid a bit on a Grail quest to find a copy along with the expansion, but I've never regretted getting our own copy. It plays great at 2. The expansion modules are neat and fun, and I just love the game to bits. Still, a ducal 6.
So Adam Dalton, he wound up playing this game at a past Geekway to the West, where he played it as part of a play and win. He says he played it 3 times that weekend, really enjoyed it, and as soon as he didn't win it, he went right over to Miniature Market and bought it. Taught it to my wife when I got home, and she loved it, and we played it a ton. So much, I got burnt out on it. But I've played it a bit over the past couple years, and it's still very good. The area control, the drafting, and engine building all provide a fun experience that I never was tempted to sell it when it was going for so much. Well, okay, I was tempted, but my wife wouldn't let me. I'd say it started out as a ducal 6 for me, but has since settled at the ducal 5.
There you go. Francois Miley, such a mix of mechanisms. The decision space grows with each round. The engine, the endgame points, the area majority in the game is so fast. Definitely a heavier and more engaging 7 Wonders. The game is not perfect. There is fiddliness with the card swapping and construction markers. And to be honest, I think it takes one full game to really grasp the area majority importance. It's been a hit with every group I've ever tried it with. Another Pearl game success, and I'm very happy the new edition is coming out so new players can enjoy it. Not a perfect game, but a solid 5 for me. Sean, that 7 Wonders comparison, does that ring true to you? Did you get a 7 Wonders feel with this game?
Well, it's got the drafting. I mean, 7 Wonders is, you're drafting and you're set collecting, and that's, here you're drafting towards, a greater purpose, I think. So it's a part of it. I get it, but I don't quite make that comparison in my mind.
Yeah, it didn't didn't strike me as quite like that either. But yeah, fair enough.
And then Eugene Chavez says, my spouse picked up a first edition on a whim, and we were blown away by the game. Now, she would never rank these things, but I might say that Ginkgopolis is my spouse's favorite game. It is so unique and engaging that even if the upkeep elements are a little off-putting, it never seems to detract from my enjoyment of the game. I also find the teach a little difficult because the gameplay is relatively easy to explain, but the conceptual of how it all comes together tends to be a little opaque. That said, it's an easy Ducal 6 for me, and I'd love to play a game of it right now. Wow. 3 6s and a 5 in the guild comments. Holy cow, Alex.
Probably a 2 or 3 if I had to guess from Chris K.
Yeah.
But no, very, very strong praise. More praise than not for this one. So, yeah, I'm very curious where you'll end up on this one, Sean. I think I have a guess, and we may be of a similar mindset, but we'll see. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think this is a fantastic game. It is excellent. It is not going to be a 6 for me. By the way, we rate everything here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale. So for those 6s that you've been hearing from other people, 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. 5 is a great game. We'll rarely turn down a play of it. And I think that's where I'm going to settle. I'm going to settle on a pretty solid 5. This is a great game. I mean, it really is. It's not competing for a top 10 game for me, but I think it's really good. And I do like when a game is easy to teach, because obviously that makes it accessible. And again, I think if you explain a little bit of strategy, sometimes you got to be careful. Some people don't want to hear that. They want to discover for themselves, and that's fine. I think you just need to know when that's the case or not. But if they're willing, I think it's certainly helpful. This game has a ton of shenanigans. I love shenanigans. And it's tense. You're flipping your cards over. Man, I hope they didn't get the card they needed to knock me out of position in this particular spot. It's stressful. And, we've talked about before, I like being stressed out playing games for some silly, stupid reason. So I think it's a very solid 5. Never considered cracking a 6. Definitely a solid 5. Is that what you were kind of expecting, Alex, from me?
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. That sounds like it would be fitting. I would have been surprised if you'd gone as high as a 6.
Yeah. What about if I'd gone as low as a 4?
I would have been surprised by that too.
Okay.
Just based on the discussion.
Glad to meet your expectations.
Yes, always helpful. Very cool. I am in a pretty similar place as you, Sean. It's a very satisfying combination of mechanics. It can feel on a first play a little bit like a Rosetta Stone, just something that you have to decipher and don't quite understand. But by the time you get it, the decisions become really tense. They become really interesting. How the mechanics all play together works really well together. I think the theme is a slight detractor. I think the fiddliness is not overall a detractor, but I think it does hold the game back just a skosh. Some of the setup is a little bit fiddly for sure. But I've really enjoyed this at 2. Would be very curious to try it at higher player counts. For me, this definitely fits into more of a category of great than good. And I can see why so many people adore this game. I can see why it was a grail game for so many folks. I'm glad it's available again. Yeah, solid 5 for me. Great game. Will rarely turn out of play of it. And I don't know about you, Sean. Will you seek out the expansions for this?
Yes, I absolutely will. Will.
I think there's a chance I might, chance I won't, but it also passes the box appeal test. It looks good on a shelf, so that's another reason this thing's gonna be sticking around for a little bit here in the St. Louis Duchy, at least. So, are
you sure though? Because that's what I was going to ask, Alex. You're frequently wrong.
Oh, I'm frequently very wrong. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you? What was Abby's enjoyment level of this game?
She liked it. She actually really dug it. She struggled early on, much like I did, to kind of understand how to do well. But by that second game, she was really getting into the tension of the choices and really mulling it over and thinking things through. And she enjoyed the crunchiness of it. She enjoyed that once you got it, you got it. It didn't have a ton of fiddliness. It does help when she wins on a first play.
Sure.
She's kind of a little like me in that sense, but
I was going to say, sounds like someone else I know.
Yeah, she likes what she likes about it is she likes an even playing field. So, for instance, if I've played a game a couple of times before we play it together for the first time, that can be problematic because it can feel like, especially if I forgot to teach a rule or didn't teach a rule well, that can be a bad feeling. She wants to feel competitive in a first play. And obviously winning one helps. But no, she did enjoy this game. And again, the look of a game can determine whether it sticks around. This may drop to a 4 a year from now, Sean, and it's possible we won't have played it, but I have a feeling I will bring this around to when in-person game nights get going here in the next month or two. I will probably bring this around and try it with other folks. And I have a feeling I will have played this in the year hence. That's my prediction. I will have played this once or twice, at least.
Cool. All right.
Yeah. There you go. So that's our review of Ginkgopolis. Sean with a 5, and I give it a 5 too. High five. High five, Sean.
High five.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, finally. Well, not quite finally. Oh, another thing after this. But the Duke's Double Take, where we're looking back at episode 222, Shut-ins of the Stressed Kingdom. Another pandemic reference. You're going to have a lot of those over the course of this coming year, where we reviewed Paladins of the West Kingdom. Sean, what did we think of this at the time?
Oh, boy, Alex. Not a whole lot, to be honest. Because we need to provide some context here. This is right when the full shutdown kind of went into effect. I feel like I only played it once. Oh, no. I played it. I remember what happened. No, that's not true. I did play it 3 times. One night at a Dukes of Dice game night, I wound up taking the copy home because this was Jared's copy. Played it with Raquel 2 more times. But I wound up keeping this game for like 6 months because we went to lockdown and never had an opportunity to see Jared. And then I wound up giving it back to him at some point, or leaving it at the shop, I think is what I wound up doing. And I feel like, I don't know, it was a weird time. So, Alex, you gave this a high 4. You said, I haven't played it very much, but I like it so far. Like, these were the shortest final thoughts we've ever had on the Dukes of Dice. I was listening to it. I'm like, wait, what? That's it? Wait, what? Huh? Okay. I gave it a 3. I didn't really have much to say. I said I would rather play this than Architects of a Blank Kingdom or Raiders of the North Sea, I believe.
Yes.
And honestly, I kind of can't separate any of these games in my mind at this point. Like, they're all fine. And my point was that, I think it's a better game than I'm giving credit for because I've been down on midweight Euros for so long. And if these are worth checking out. Definitely worth checking out. But yeah, it was a weird final thoughts that we did. And I think we were the weight of everything that was happening was finally sinking in. So
yeah. Yeah. I haven't played this one since.
Yeah.
I had a hard time distinguishing this in my mind. I looked at some photos on BGG and sort of have a recollection of how this works. I think there's a unified visual style to this game that makes sense for the series and has everything feel cohesive, but I think it can also have the effect of not having games feel as distinct in your mind. So I think it's kind of a pro and con of the system. I definitely enjoyed my play of this, but it hasn't been one that I've sought out or looked to play again in the time since. I don't have a ton else to say, so we can have this be a pretty short double take, at least from us. Score-wise, Sean, I take it you probably don't move it.
No, I mean, I would, if it's a 2, I'm not going to play it again, right? Like, I'll refuse. I'll play it again. It's a fine game. Just didn't excite me a super amount.
Yeah, I'd say that's about. I'd say I still recall enjoying the play well enough that I have to trust my take at the time that it was probably a 4, and I don't want to second guess it too much. So maybe not a high 4, maybe just a normal 4. But I certainly haven't sought this one out since. So take that for what you will.
Right.
Sylvain Lacroix from the Guild. I've only played a few games. While it's a good game, I don't think I'll keep it in my collection for a long time. Solo setup's too long, and while it's mechanically a good game, I don't feel a lot of excitement with this one. Give it a 3. It's a 3.
And then Francois Miley says, this one is a weird one for me. Very good worker placement, Orleans style. Lots of combo, and just enough randomness to keep it fresh. Great game with 2 players. Horrible for 3 and 4 players. Wow, does that game get long, and you have nothing to do on your opponent's turns. I give it a 4 for 2 players, and for more players, just don't. Your time investment won't be rewarded.
Yeah, fair enough. Adam Dalton says, I've only played Paladins once. This is a 4-player game that took almost 4 hours. Just took too long for what it was in turning resources into other resources. I've liked other games by the same designer. Raiders of the North Sea is solid. Architects of the West Kingdom is great. But Paladins just didn't meet the mark for me personally. Ducal 3, simply because I've only played it once, and I'd be willing to play it again, but only at 2 players. There you have it.
Right. Interesting.
Duke's double take, kind of in the same vein as us, Sean. You stay at a 3, I'll stay at a 4, but I don't know. Just kind of forgettable. So, before we wrap things up, the best of the rest. The names we did not pick. First up, Matthew S. with The Knights Who Say 3. And, Sean, I found out tonight you are not a Monty Python fan.
Not a huge Monty Python fan. I think, if anything, I liked Flying Circus more than any of the movies.
Okay. Even Holy Grail?
What's that?
Even Holy Grail?
Yeah, it's not something that I, watched a bunch growing up, and I felt like I had the need as a young kid or a teenager to, watch over and over again. I don't know. I don't know. And
I have perhaps never laughed so hard at a movie as I did the first time I ever saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I saw it in my teens at some point, and the peak Monty Python for me. I did love Flying Circus. Flying Circus has some classic sketches, but yeah. So anyway, the combo of this Paladins is the Knights reference, and then Tree referencing the trees of Ginkgo biloba.
Well, and the reference for Monty Python. And
well, sure. Okay,
of course.
All right. Yeah.
The Knights Who Say Ni, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't actually fully explain that. Yeah, the Knights Who Say Ni, part of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Probably my favorite moment at the time of that movie. So, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
And then Jimmy DM90 suggested, I'm trying to think how to say this. Metropolitans, right? Metropolitans?
Maybe I should just jump in here.
Go for it. Go nuts.
Metropolitans of the West Kingdom.
I don't know why that was so difficult. I think I was trying to say Metropolis and Metro. Never mind. We'll move on. Baker Mitchell suggested Quest for the Grail. This is very much a meta reference because for so many, this Ginkgopolis. I'm so tired, Alex.
How are you so bad at this?
Has been a Grail game for many, and we've got the Paladins and the Holy Grail and blah blah blah, etc. Very clever title, not blah blah blah. I don't know why I said blah blah blah. Alex, let's wrap this up. You knock out the last 2. Let's save our listeners' ears and let's save my brain cells, the few that remain.
Blaine Miley with Knights of the Round Tableau, referencing Knights of the Round Table in the tableau building you do in Ginkgopolis. That's probably my runner-up for me. And then Francois Miley with Old Soul. I just lost the guild thread for this. The explanation is kind of necessary. I believe something to do with ginkgo trees being the oldest. Oh, loading. Why won't you go, internet? Please go. Oh, this is killing me. Sean, you asked me to kind of motor through these, and I let you down because this is the one that needed the guild explanation.
You're such a disappointment sometimes. You realize
sometimes
that, right?
I am. No, I get it. The Ginkgo biloba, the oldest kind of tree in the world, and Paladin, the champion of the Christian. Yeah, so there you go. That's your combo. So Old Soul.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as always, Guild, thank you so much for your help because we couldn't do that without you. But that is going to do it for episode 248, which Alex forgot to move down in the show notes, and he's fastly typing in here because I don't remember. My memory is poor. Oh, that's right. Episode 248, a tough nut to sack. Thanks again to Chris K for that amazing title. Even though you don't like the game, at least you named the episode. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And duke you later, everybody. I'm going to go take a nap.
Thank you so much for listening to The Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on April 9th, 2021. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all ladies in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers, LLC. Learn more about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com and find out all you know about Arcane Wonders' new titles at ArcaneWonders.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!